In one of the American states, specifically in Kentucky, atop a towering hill in the city of Louisville, stands a massive castle-like building whose walls conceal the story of one of the most challenging periods in American medical history. This grand structure, built in the 1920s, was once one of the largest and most famous hospitals in the entire United States. This hospital was not just an ordinary medical facility like any other. It was a self-sufficient small city. It included a garden and recreational spaces, all designed to provide a suitable environment for the thousands of patients, doctors, and nurses who lived there for many years, completely isolated from the outside world. This building witnessed many mysterious events and intriguing medical experiments, transforming it from a life-saving refuge for many into one of the most haunted places in the world. Welcome to the Investigator channel with a new investigation. Join me today as I tell you the story of the haunted hospital, Waverly Hills. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. The story begins in 1883 with former officer and Army Inspector Thomas Hills, who dedicated his life to serving in the U.S. military until he reached retirement age. When it was finally time to rest after years of exhaustion and hardship, he decided to move away from the hustle and bustle of life and settle in a quiet and secluded place where he could build his home and live with his family. After a long search, he found a suitable piece of land in a remote area of Kentucky, specifically in Louisville. The land was vast, situated on a high hill far from the city noise, and overlooking the Ohio River, granting it a breathtaking view, stunning nature, and fresh air. Without hesitation, Thomas purchased it and built the home he had always dreamed of. However, not long after he and his family moved in, he faced an unexpected problem. The house was too far from most public services, and since he had daughters of school age, it became difficult for them to attend school regularly, affecting their academic performance. Thomas found himself faced with two tough choices: either sacrifice the peace and tranquility he had sought and return to the city, or sacrifice his daughter's education. After much thought, he came up with an unconventional solution. He built a small school for his daughters. The school consisted of just one room, but it was sufficient to educate his daughters and the children of neighboring families. After a long search, he hired Lizzie Lee Harris, a highly competent teacher with a deep love for classical literature, particularly the works of Sir Walter Scott, especially his famous novel, Waverly. Because of her passion for this novel, Lizzie decided to name the school Waverly School, after her favorite book. When she proposed the name to Thomas, he was so impressed that he decided to name the entire land Waverly Hill, or Waverly Hills, a name that would define this place for many years to come. Despite its simplicity, the school built on Thomas's land became the foundation for a significant change in the region's history. It was the first public service building in the area, and what was once an abandoned hill began to attract more and more residents, eventually becoming a lively place. Years passed, Thomas's daughters grew up, completed their education, and graduated. Although the primary purpose of the school had been fulfilled, it continued to serve the children of the area. At the turn of the 20th century, life in the United States, and particularly in Louisville, underwent drastic changes. Tuberculosis, then known as the White Plague, spread terrifyingly among the population. Unfortunately, the disease's symptoms did not appear until it was too late, increasing the likelihood of transmission. This was precisely what happened in Louisville, a city once known for its beauty and peaceful atmosphere, but which became one of the most affected by tuberculosis in the country. Statistics showed that 1 in every 5 people in the city was infected. At that time, medicine had not yet discovered an effective cure for the disease, and those infected either faced certain death or suffered for the rest of their lives. The city's doctors understood the gravity of the situation. Tuberculosis was highly contagious and spread rapidly. They knew that patients had to be completely isolated from the rest of the population to control the outbreak. However, the biggest challenge was the lack of specialized hospitals in the region. Naturally, tuberculosis patients could not be admitted to general hospitals because the disease was airborne, meaning other vulnerable patients would be at risk of certain death. As a result, those infected were advised to remain at home for treatment, which only accelerated the spread of the disease. Faced with this catastrophic situation, The Louisville Hospital Board decided in 1907 that urgent action was needed to establish a specialized facility for tuberculosis patients. At that time, a local official learned about the small school on the hill overlooking the Ohio River and suggested using the land to solve the crisis. The board decided to purchase the land from Thomas, who immediately agreed upon learning that it would be used for the public good. Just 3 years later, in 1910, Waverly Hills Sanatorium opened its doors. Initially, it was a small 2-story building with 2 wings, each containing 20 beds for early-stage patients. Despite its simplicity, it served its purpose well. The hospital was designed with large windows and open balconies, as doctors believed that fresh air and sunlight were the best treatments for tuberculosis. Unfortunately, the hospital was too small compared to the growing number of patients seeking treatment. Within just 2 years, the hospital was overwhelmed, leading the medical board in 1912 to approve funding for expansions. Additional wooden structures were built, each with 20 more beds, and a separate children's ward was created to accommodate young patients in a suitable environment. After these expansions, the hospital could house 140 patients. However, this was still insufficient, as tuberculosis continued to spread. The real issue was not just the number of beds, but also the hospital's lack of adequate medical equipment. Physicians needed a larger, more advanced facility to provide better care. After repeated requests, the government finally recognized the urgency in 1926 and approved the construction of a new, state-of-the-art sanatorium. The new building was massive, spanning approximately 100,000 square meters and consisting of 5 floors. Each floor was designated for a specific category of patients, with a total of 100 rooms. Since tuberculosis treatment took a long time, the hospital aimed to provide a self-sustained environment, including a library, theater, school for children, gym, and a fully equipped kitchen run by professional chefs, creating a more livable atmosphere. Finally, in 1926, the new Waverly Hills Sanatorium opened, accommodating over 500 patients, making it the largest and most advanced tuberculosis hospital in the eastern U.S. Despite its promising exterior, life inside was far from ideal. Medical knowledge of tuberculosis was limited, and treatments were often harsh and experimental. Patients were forced to lie still for hours, exposed to freezing temperatures in winter under the belief that fresh air killed bacteria. Painful procedures such as rib removal and lung balloon inflation were common, often leading to fatal outcomes. With death occurring almost every hour, a secret death tunnel was used to transport bodies unseen by living patients. Over 100,000 corpses are believed to have passed through this tunnel, cementing its dark reputation. Ultimately, the discovery of antibiotics, particularly streptomycin, led to the hospital's closure in 1961 after more than 50 years of suffering. Though repurposed in 1962 as a geriatric hospital, neglect and mistreatment led to its final closure in 1982. Since then, Waverly Hills has remained abandoned, its dark history giving rise to countless haunting tales. With the hospital's closure in 1961 and its subsequent use as a nursing home until 1982, the building remained abandoned for decades, and the horror stories surrounding it became part of its mysterious history. Many believe that Waverly Hills Sanatorium is one of the most haunted places in the United States, with numerous visitors reporting sightings of paranormal phenomena. One of the most well-known stories involves apparitions of former patients dressed in old hospital gowns, wandering through the dark corridors. One of the most terrifying locations in the building is Room 502, where it is said that a young nurse committed suicide in the 1930s after becoming pregnant out of wedlock. Her spirit is believed to still haunt the place, with some visitors claiming to have seen her apparition standing near the window or heard muffled sobbing inside the room. Another chilling tale involves the ghost of a small child known as Timmy, who is said to have been a young patient at the hospital. Eyewitnesses report seeing a ball rolling on its own down the hallways, as if Timmy is still playing with it, despite having passed away decades ago. The death tunnel has also become one of the most feared spots in the hospital, with visitors reporting eerie whispers, unexplained footsteps, and even dark shadows moving within it. While some of these stories may simply be urban legends or the product of overactive imaginations, Waverly Hills Sanatorium remains a popular destination for paranormal enthusiasts. Night tours are organized to explore the building, attracting visitors from around the world, all hoping to witness something supernatural.